What's up, guys? You are watching Fight Feed, and today I'm going to be just giving you my quick recap for the UFC Fight Night Nashville card that just happened last night. I am a little bit late to the party, guys. I actually was not able to watch all of these fights live, unfortunately, but I was able to catch up this morning, watch every fight that occurred. So I'm going to just give you guys my quick recap breakdown of each fight that occurred, and then also just give you a heads up into my pick preview tracker video that's going to be coming out tomorrow on Monday, July 14th. So let's go ahead and dive in to the UFC Fight Night Nashville card and give you guys this recap. So looking at the first fight that I'm going to go through, which is going to be, I'm going to go main card all the way through the bottom here. We've got Derrick the Black Beast Lewis doing his damn thing in there. I picked Derrick Lewis to get a win in this fight, guys. I thought he was going to get a KO. Mainly thought this because if you know your history on the UFC, and by the way, for any of you who are new here, if you don't know your history that much on the UFC, you like betting on some of these fights, I would implore you to subscribe to Fight Feed so you can stay on top of the picks that I make each week. I do not gamble myself, but I do like to post my picks and predictions for each fight card. I have been a fan of UFC for several years now, and I watch it religiously. I'm not a casual fan. I am watching this shit sometimes in my sleep, if you will. And so I would just say, in this fight, what I saw happening, I did see that Teixeira does have a very strong jab, very strong straight punches, but he has an issue being that he's a skyscraper of a man, 6'7". He keeps his head and his chin wide open, and having a wide open chin for the Black Beast is a recipe for disaster. Not for the Black Beast, however. Derrick Lewis, right off the bat in this fight, you see Derrick Lewis in that very heavy stance where he's ready to just drop that right hand and, send this guy to the canvas. Taliesin does land a sharp jab right to the eye of Derrick Lewis. I think that definitely stunned Derrick Lewis a bit, but right as Taliesin starts to kind of go in and get the kill here, Derrick is just throwing these heavy hooks, and then he catches him with the lead hook and drops his ass. And as Taliesin drops down, guys, if you rewatch this fight, he's like shaking. I think he was definitely hurt pretty bad. He did not know how to handle that shot that Derrick landed on him. And then Derrick Lewis just does a typical Black Beast finishing style where he just goes on top, tries to land some heavy ground and pound. And then we got Taliesin Teixeira kind of getting knocked out and then back into consciousness in some of those exchanges on the ground. He ends up grabbing the cage to pull himself up. Bitch slaps Jason Herzog, which I think it was Jason Herzog. Why the fuck is Jason Herzog, 5'7" Jason Herzog, in there with these heavyweights? That is crazy. Guys, that is some of the worst matchmaking for a referee that I've ever seen. I actually like Jason Herzog. I think he is one of the best refs to do it, but putting him, no shade on him, he's just a smaller guy. Why is he in there with two heavyweights trying to break this fight up? You gotta have the long beard, whatever the hell that guy's name is. The dude that almost KO'd Julian Erosa after Julian Erosa won on April 13th. What was that? UFC 314? I don't fucking know. The Volt card, okay? We need that ref in there with these heavyweights. He ain't gonna allow that shit to happen. Anyways, this fight really went exactly the way I expected. I did think that because it's heavyweight, you have a weird chance that Taliesin Teixeira lands something of note and maybe hurts Derrick Lewis or even gets him out of there. But guys, Taliesin Teixeira is only 25 years old. He only beat Justin Tafa in the UFC so far. You can't really count the Contender Series fight because although that Contender Series fight he had, the opponent that he had showed some good heart and landed some good shots, you cannot compare that to the level of Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis has over 20 UFC fights. He has 20 UFC knockouts, or it's 16 now. I think he has 21 finishes out of all of his fights, but he has 16 knockouts. So he has the highest record of knockouts in the UFC. So that is in UFC history. I just felt like, dude, you can't put this kid in there. He's only 25, so I'll call him a kid, like Dana White. But I just feel like he was not ready for this type of test, especially given that the holes that I've seen in his offense, he's a very good striker, but how good is he at striking when there's offense coming back his way? Can he be a good defensive striker? I didn't think so, because I feel like when the fights I've seen, every fight ends in the first round. Taliesin has that type of range where he's able to really hurt his opponents from far away and not really get touched much. And I'm like, against a guy like Derrick Lewis, you get touched once and you're sitting on your ass. And that's exactly what happened. He got connected on one time and he was on his ass. He was doing the jitterbug and trying to fight his way back up. But Derrick Lewis was having none of that. Gets the KO, and then also hopefully got some ground and pound in with his wife, as he called out in his post-fight interview. Shout out to the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis. Guys, stick with me. I at least on this fight card, I'm gonna brag a bit because I feel like I did really well. So the next fight on the card, let's go ahead and look at this one. We've got Stephen Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. So this fight, to be honest, guys, after rewatching, I'm not super impressed with Gabriel Bonfim's performance, to be honest with you. I will say that going up against a Wonderboy Thompson is a tricky situation because Wonderboy Thompson is one of the most skilled and proficient strikers we've ever seen in the UFC. However, he is 42 years old, but I think that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is in this weird, he's cut from a different fabric, if you will. He is like one of the only 40-year-olds that Dana White is like okay with continuing on in his career. Usually at this point, like you see a 41, 42-year-old in a fight, and right immediately after the fight, Dana White goes, yeah, that kid should retire. Like, it's not a good fight. He's too old. He should retire. Anytime these guys start thinking about retiring, they should retire. You know how I feel about that. But in this fight, I mean, Wonderboy once again puts on a good enough performance where he's competitive on the feet, obviously, because he always will be. He did get landed on a few times by Gabriel Bonfim, but in reality, if we're really looking at it, it was kind of just like a pitter-pat back and forth type of fight. Not too much going on. You did have Wonderboy get a nice reversal in the first round, which was pretty cool. He never really does that on the ground. But Bonfim, I feel like, being that he's a young prospect, I truly was not that impressed with his performance. I feel like he should have had, I guess, a more dominant performance at this point in his career, especially given that he's a highly touted prospect. But Wonderboy went out there, guys, and he made it a scrappy fight. And like looking at the full fight stats here, you've got a total strikes of 78 to 55 in favor of Wonderboy, which is a very low striking fight, especially in welterweight. You got that reversal from Wonderboy, and then significant strikes. Wonderboy's only up by 2, but I guess from a percentage perspective, Bonfim did a little bit better. It was a split decision. A lot of people are saying this is a robbery. I would say round one's going to go, in my opinion, you put round one in the hands of Bonfim. I think Bonfim did more on the feet in this round, especially was landing that lead calf kick quite a bit on Wonderboy. And I think that he had a good game plan going against Wonderboy, knowing Wonderboy's got a very bladed stance. That calf is right there for the taking, and he was able to get a lot of success on that one. Now, also got 2 takedowns, didn't do shit with it though. I mean, this is the typical story we see with some of these grapplers where it's like they get a takedown, but you don't do shit with it. I don't even think he had a sub attempt. It says he doesn't, and I don't remember there being one anyways. Round 2, you got, Wonderboy really owning from the striking perspective with 37 to 16 total strikes, 29 significant strikes, and 16 on the side of Bonfim. I guess it is kind of cool that Bonfim, every strike he landed was a significant strike in that round, so that's interesting. So I guess you could throw that up and give that to Wonderboy. And then looking at round 3, you got another round where there's 2 takedowns on the side of Bonfim. Total strike-wise, Wonderboy definitely won in that round as well, but significant strike-wise, Bonfim edges it out with 3. I really don't know how they score it, guys. I think that significant strikes are weighted heavier in the judges' eyes. But at the end of the day, this is a close fight. And honestly, for Wonderboy, I think it keeps his stock intact of, hey, look, you're 42, but you're still scrappy, getting split decision loss to a very young, hungry prospect. I think Wonderboy can still go out there and give us some fun performances. I definitely don't think Wonderboy's in a position right now where he's even close to making it to the belt talk. But I would love to see Wonderboy stay in the UFC and just have some fun performances. Like, why can't Wonderboy just be a guy who we now put against, other fun strikers to make a fun matchup happen versus it being like a title contention or ranking situation? I do respect Wonderboy though, guys. Wonderboy's the only motherfucker, it seems like, that is willing, outside of Derrick Lewis, to give these youngins a shot at his ranking. And you gotta respect that, because even Kamaru Usman did it. Like, you gotta fight the up and coming hungry fuckers, give them a shot. But at this point, I think Wonderboy's done that, guys, and now he's going to be kind of at the very back end of the rankings at welterweight. I do think we should now probably talk about giving Wonderboy more of those fun style matchups than it being like a ranking situation, is my opinion. Bonfim, though, I think has a lot more to prove, and still a very skilled fighter. We'll have to see what he does with the rest of his career. He's still young, obviously. I think he's only 27, so he'll continue on, and now he's in the rankings at welterweight. I just don't know how he fares against some of the other top hungry young welterweights, like an Ian Gary, like a Michael Morales, like a Sean Brady. I mean, these guys, I feel like all would take his number very easily. But look, that's just based off this performance. We'll have to see what comes next for him. The next fight, we've got Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia. This fight, really, guys, when I rewatched it, it kind of went the way that I expected. I had a feeling that Steve Garcia would just be the more dynamic on the feet fighter in this fight. Steve Garcia has sneaky power. He had, I think, a 5 or 6 fight finish streak going into this fight. And I just truly feel like Steve Garcia has one of those styles. It's very hard to handle, especially because he's so dynamic on the feet. He is a southpaw too, so it's a lot trickier for these fighters to handle. And I think Calvin Kattar did try to do his best to win in certain boxing exchanges, use the jab. I think Calvin Kattar is one of those fighters, especially at a featherweight, uses his jab really well. And I think that from a boxing perspective, we used to look at Calvin Kattar as the senior. I'm the senior and Max the freshman. But I have to say, guys, I have not been impressed by Calvin Kattar in the last several fights. He's now on a 5-fight losing streak. So I don't even know if he stays in the UFC at this point. We'll have to see what happens. But I do think that Calvin Kattar was either ranked or very close to the rankings. So ultimately, it's a good win for Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is a very good fighter, guys. And looking at these total strikes, I mean, the story is kind of told in this. We don't even need to really go round by round because you can just see, just based off the total strikes, you got 85 total strikes for Steve Garcia with 85 significant strikes. So this guy, every strike he landed was a significant strike. That's awesome. And then you got 26 for Calvin Kattar. So Calvin Kattar really didn't have a lot happening in this fight. Was really more defensive on the back foot, trying to land when he could. But ultimately, Steve Garcia just controlled the show from start to finish. Great fight, though. It'll be fun to see where Steve Garcia nets out and where he lands next in his career. But we will go ahead and jump down to the fight of the night between Nate the Train, baby. Nate the Train in the UFC, baby. Nate the Train, Morgan Charriere. We had a banger of a fight, guys. This was so fun to rewatch. I honestly chose Morgan to get the win solely off the fact that Nate Landwehr, I love Nate Landwehr. He's got a great style. He's very fun to watch. I just felt like in his recent fights, he's been a little bit questionable from a durability perspective. And I feel like Morgan Charriere was going to catch him at some point, but that didn't mean that he was going to dog walk Nate the Train, because Nate the Train he's not usually getting dog walked, but Doo Ho Choi kind of did. But anyways, looking at this fight overall, guys, really fun fight. These guys were trading back and forth. I want to kind of go round by round on this one. Really, when you think about it, guys, these fights, they all had a low amount of significant strikes, like not like crazy amount. But taking a look at, round one, I think obviously it kind of goes, it could go, I think you got to give round one to Morgan Charriere. He did get a knockdown in round one. And that's what I expected. I thought that Nate Landwehr would get caught early on and maybe finish early on, or weather the storm, but maybe have some adversity. But Nate Landwehr is a guy that cooks as the fight goes, as we know. Not really in the Jamal Emmers fight, but in other fights like David Onama. It was a very back and forth war, but Nate Landwehr's gas tank, Nate the Train, baby, he just kept going and he ran him down. But looking at the takedowns too, you had 2 takedowns on the side of Morgan Charriere, so it's obviously, I think you could give it to him. Now, Nate the Train being the hometown hero, he might be able to get that round one on the judges' scorecards. Round two, though, Nate Landwehr fucking pieces Morgan Charriere up. Like, this was a bad round for Morgan. Morgan looked tired, was kind of on the back foot the whole time, and Nate was just popping him like 40% style, like bop, 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 bop. Just getting him in the face, getting the face of him, making it a dirty fight. Very accurate in this round too, I would say. Although the percentage doesn't tell that story. I do think watching it, he was very accurate with some of those pitter-pat shots that he was landing on Morgan Charriere. Now, and guys, I must have forgot. This knockdown is just a knockdown overall. It's not a round-by-round knockdown. Not a round-by-round knockdown. Taking a look at round 3, though. Morgan Charriere, I don't know if his coaches were in the corner fucking yelling at him in French, but they told him, yo, dude, you got to go get something done here. And then Morgan Charriere starts this round off like a fucking bat out of hell, just gets Nate the Train backed up against the cage, starts landing fucking throwing everything he's got into some of these hooks. And then, Nate the Train was doing a good job at like being hurt, but like slipping shots. And like, dude, it was actually crazy to watch him like jip and jive all to the side and stuff. But then out of nowhere, he just gets plastered with a fucking, I think it was a lead hook, and drops him to the canvas. Nate the Train was still there, but I don't think that he needed to take any more punishment, in my opinion. I think that the fight was over, but Nate the Train, God, it sucks, man, because, you want him to get a win in his hometown. He's a great fighter. He's fun to watch. Cuts a great promo. My mama ain't raised no bitch. But, ultimately Morgan Charriere was able to, weather that storm from round 2 and come into round 3 and get that W. So good for Morgan Charriere. We'll have to see what happens next for these guys. Next fight on the card, we got Vitor Petrino versus Austin Lane. Vitor Petrino at heavyweight. It's a fucking unit. Looks like a brick shithouse. Anyways, he really just controls this fight, gets him into the ground. Like, I mean, look at these strikes, guys. 17-3. Like, what the fuck, man? This is such a fast fight. 2 sub attempts, ends up getting that submission. Very good performance from Vitor Petrino, but it's not, and not to shit on Austin Lane. Austin Lane is a monster of a man, 6'6", but it's hard to say, does this win like age really well for him? Does Vitor Petrino continue to find that success at heavyweight? I think he will. And if you go off of Lucas Tracy, that lighter man skill, perhaps he continues to bring that out. But dude, at heavyweight, Vitor Petrino looks like a different person. It's still like crazy to see him like this. But great win for him. And Austin Lane likely to either be cut or retire. But hey, shout out to Austin Lane going out there. He just had a pretty bad loss too, so respect. Anyways, looking at the next fight, Junior Tafa versus Tuco Tacos. I went with Junior Tafa in this fight, and it was a bad decision, guys. Junior Tafa, I feel like at this point, likely should be released from the UFC. 4 takedowns for Tocos in round 1, guys. Yep, 4 takedowns in round 1. So, I mean, significant strikes-wise, I think Junior Tafa obviously had more success there. But I think that if you were to pair these two up on any card, you would expect Junior Tafa to kind of win in those striking exchanges and Tacos to be the better grappler. And I might be saying his name wrong, but I'm going to keep calling him Tacos. Tacos ends up getting the sub. This fight was pretty, I don't know, guys. Not the greatest fight. And Junior Tafa, I think, just has to, like, I think he's now, 6-4? Like, dude, I don't know, man. Not much to write home about. Honestly, not even going to waste any more time on it. I'm going to jump down to the next fight. We've got a fight between Max Griffin and Chris Curtis. So in this fight, guys, I picked Chris Curtis, but I think Max Griffin really had a much better showing than I expected. Max Griffin's always been a good fighter in the UFC, per se. I will say my decision on choosing Chris Curtis, though, was very driven by the fact that Max Griffin was getting pieced up by Michael, and that is not something that I take very lightly. I feel like getting pieced up by Mike Chiesa it's a bit worrisome when you're on the feet. Now, I'm not like shitting on Mike as a striker like all the way, but I just think that there's better, like Max Griffin's fought better strikers and done better against them, but maybe he was worried about the takedowns. So I guess coming into this fight, Max Griffin did have a good performance against Chris Curtis. It was a close fight. I would say, if we're looking at strikes, in round 1, obviously you've got Max Griffin getting kind of the bulk of those significant strikes where Chris Curtis was a little bit more hesitant. Round 2, on the other hand, you've got more significant strikes on the side of Curtis, but only marginally, not a crazy percentage in his favor, really, like only 23-19. In total strikes, 21-17 in significant. And then round 3, this is where I think that Chris Curtis picks it up and ends up getting this W. He has a lot more significant strikes. I think that Max Griffin probably just has that issue with cardio as time goes on. Chris Curtis has had issues where, he might get a little bit gassed, like in the Brendan Allen fight at middleweight, but he doesn't have like the worst cardio in the world. So I think that that's probably what helped him edge this out, just getting a solid performance in that last round as well. Ultimately, a fun fight. I think that it'll be interesting to see where Chris Curtis goes next in the welterweight division. And also, Max Griffin, a few losses in a row now. I don't know if he'll be able to stay in the UFC, but we'll have to see what happens. We can now jump down to the Jake Matthews versus Ian Njokuani. Now, I had picked Jake Matthews in this fight, guys. I thought that he would get the win, and I'm very happy to see that he did. I do like Chidi Njokuani, but he's been missing weight a lot, and I just felt like Jake Matthews was the better all-around fighter. And I also thought that Jake Matthews would probably win if they were in some of those boxing in the pocket type situations. And Jake Matthews looked great, guys. You know, they got into a clinching exchange pretty early on in the fight where Cheat would definitely want to bring things, but Jake was able to be that scrappy veteran who, you know, shucks him to the side, gets that back, gets a rear naked choke in. Cheaty tries to walk him across the stage and he taps out. So Jake Matthews gets a very big win. It's crazy, guys. Jake Matthews is only 30 years old and he's got over, I think, 12 or 13 UFC fights. So good on him. Very good win. It'll be fun to see where he goes next. Now, Lauren Murphy versus Eduardo Mora. This is kind of exactly what I expected, guys. I did think that Eduardo could get a finish, but Lauren Murphy's not an easy fighter to finish. I just thought that her being 42 years old at this weight class and getting pieced up by Andrade, hasn't fought in a few years, I felt like when you think about all those things kind of compounding together, that Lauren Murphy was kind of set up for, you know, this being a retirement fight, if you will. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, looking at the significant strikes overall, you got 64 to 38. Eduardo Mora clearly in the lead on that one. But Lauren Murphy, guys, she's a very scrappy fighter. And as the fight went on, this is something that Lauren Murphy does very well. She's just constantly in your face, just kind of like throwing like, you know, 30% at you and, you know, tagging you. And I think that as the fight went on, Eduardo's gas tank proved to be a little questionable, if you will. I feel like Lauren Murphy had a lot more success as the fight went on. But in reality, I definitely believe that looking at this full fight, it was very clearly Eduardo Mora's fight, and Lauren Murphy retires. Good on her. Hopefully she has, you know, a lot of fun and success outside of the UFC. Not going to shit on her or hate on her. She did fight Valentina. She got all the way up in the, you know, got a title fight. So, you know, she did her thing. Jumping down to Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Vitor Walker. So this fight, guys, I gotta say, pretty surprised. I thought that Kennedy would be able to keep Vitor at range with his striking and potentially hurt him. I did not know if Kennedy could get a finish in this fight. I did think that if he landed flush, he could. He always has that opportunity, especially at heavyweight. He does have some powerful striking, and he's got very long reach. Now, what ends up happening, though, is Vitor Walker ends up clipping Kennedy off the rip, getting him on the back foot, and then really just gets him up against the cage and does I don't even know what type of, like, it wasn't like a takedown. It was a takedown, I guess interesting, because it was interesting because I guess it is a takedown, but it's like he was literally jumping into, I guess it would be like guard on the legs. And guys, I'm not a jiu-jitsu expert, so don't torch me, but he grabs that heel hook that he's grabbed in his last two fights and just rips that bitch. And Kennedy's tapping right away. Vitor Walker, guys, is a problem at heavyweight, especially with these heel hooks. He is very good at cinching up that heel. And unlike other fighters I've seen in the UFC who go for a heel hook, but it's like they can never get it right. You know, they never get it in there right. They never get the twist right. Vitor Walker's got like a vice grip on that heel. And you see the fighters, they're tapping right away. Like when he got it on Junior Tafa, Junior was tapping as Vitor was like starting to do the alligator roll. So Vitor Walker's very, very proficient with that heel hook submission. And from what I understand about the heel hook submission, you really have zero amount of time once that's locked in before your knee is just fucking torched, if I'm not mistaken. It's either the knee or the heel, but I think it's like your knee that gets fucked up from it. And you saw Kennedy almost immediately like grimacing, and then he's tapping right away. So Vitor Walker gets a great win, gets it done in the first round. This guy should be able to turn around next week if he needs to. Great win for him. It'll be fun to see where he goes next. And at heavyweight, you know, he really could be getting a shot against a higher ranked opponent at this point, and maybe even being penciled in for a title shot soon, because heavyweight's not a very deep division. Let's go on down now to the Mike Davis-Mitch Ramirez fight, guys. This is a fun fight. Mike Davis did what I thought he would do. You know, in the first round, it was a little bit scrappy, and I was worried because Mike Davis did have control like the entire round. You know, he got like that suplex takedown and then just gets the back. But he was locked up in that body. He had Mitch Ramirez locked up in the body triangle the entire first round. But Mike Davis, you know, I don't know, guys. Like, he definitely seems to get gassed out, and that worries me a lot. But he gets out of the first round. And Mitch Ramirez comes back in round two looking fresh. Mike Davis looking slow, looking tired. Mitch Ramirez having some success in the feet, landing some shots. And then suddenly, Mike Davis just picks it up. He starts slipping these punches, starts landing some of his own shots, throws a flying knee, which is hilarious because, so while I was actually hanging out with my father-in-law. We were going to a movie at like 5. My father-in-law was watching this. he literally like saw the flying knee and was like, did you see that? Like, it was crazy. But anyways, he lands his flying knee. It might have landed a little bit flush. It's in some angles, it looked like it hit him in the shoulder or maybe like the other side of the jaw, if you will. And then he just lands a nice crispy combo, throwing a couple hooks up against the cage. Lands flush. I think it was with a right hook, but I can't remember exactly. Lands flush, drops Ramirez to the ground, and he gets the W. So Mike Davis looked great, although I will say I still worry about his cardio in these situations because he did seem to gas out a little bit quickly there after that first round. Now, going down to the first fight on the card and the last fight that I'll be reviewing, of course, which was Fatima Kline versus Melissa Martinez. Fatima Kline's like decent. Like, you know, she's not bad looking, like horrible looking anyways. But getting into it, Fatima Kline goes out there, really controls this fight from start to finish, guys. I mean, looking at the significant strikes, looking at the total strikes, you've got her getting, you know, almost 100 significant strikes to 44 on the side of Melissa Martinez. This fight kind of went how I expected because I thought Fatima Kline, very skilled, trains with Erin Blanchfield, and not to mention, I believe she's the younger fighter. Maybe she's not the younger fighter, but I do know Fatima Kline was going to be the bigger fighter in this fight, and that is exactly how I expected things to go. I thought that she would control things on the feet, and should they go to the ground in any case, Fatima Kline has that background, especially training with the likes of an Erin Blanchfield, to really control the fight from start to finish. She goes out there and does her thing, lands a huge KO, guys. I mean, that was a picture-perfect knockout that she landed. She throws that lead, I think it was a lead jab, lead head kick, and just sends Melissa Martinez down and then just beats her out brutally, gets the W. A huge win for Fatima Kline. And it'll be fun to see where she goes next in the strawweight division because you have this strawweight division that is not the deepest division anymore. It'll be fun to see how she stacks up against some of those ranked talents. Get her in there with like, you know, some of the lower ranked opponents. And guys, this is crazy, but like at strawweight, I really don't even know what that ranking picture looks like right now. But I do think that Fatima Kline is likely to get a ranked opponent next and find her way into the rankings very soon. Very skilled fighter. And I'm pretty high on the fact that she trains with Erin Blanchfield, who's a very skilled grappler and fighter in and of herself. So it'll be fun to see where Fatima Kline goes in this division, and should she make a run for the title, we'll have to see. That is it, guys. That's my recap of the UFC Fight Night that happened in Nashville on July 12th. I truly appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure you give this video a like if you enjoyed. Comment below, what was your favorite fight from this card? Is there any ones that were sneaky that you thought like, oh damn, I didn't think this person was going to get the W? I would love to hear from you guys on that. And also, please, if you aren't subscribed already, subscribe to Fight Feed so you can stay on top of all my MMA content, post-fight recaps, post-fight predictions, not post-fight predictions, pre-fight predictions that I be posting on my channel. I truly appreciate it, guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.